If you like this video, click like. If you want to continue to follow our adventure, hit subscribe. Your support would be greatly appreciated.
Hello, Thousand Road subscribers and followers. Thought I'd go over what I'm calling the 4 essential systems in a pop-up camper. And when I say essential, they're systems. And I'll just list them off. The water pump, the water tank, the inverter, and propane. And I want to kind of discuss these systems a little bit so everybody knows how they work. And because the other day I did a video, I'll put the link to that right here, where I talked about four basic things that are easy to replace, and so we talked about these things and how easily they are to replace. So, and the first one is the water pump. My water pump I bought off Amazon, and it's a very simple design. It's a DC pump. It means it's DC electric, runs right off the battery. So you have a positive and a negative wire that runs to it. If you choose to hook it up yourself, make sure you don't hook it up backwards. It's going to have a positive and a negative, because on mine it will run backwards. It won't do anything. You plug it all in, you get all the hoses hooked up, it just won't do anything. It runs backwards. And then you have a suction port on the pump and a discharge port. Now, it did not tell me which one was which, so I had to figure all this out because, of course, I ran it backwards and didn't do anything. So I turned the wires around, and then you put the hoses in, it doesn't do anything. So you just got to play with it, because this one did not come with any instructions. Now, the thing about the pump is it has a check valve. And a check valve means water only goes one way. It won't, no matter how much pressure you put against it, it will not backflush. And this is critical, because when you have your suction, it's going to suck the water from your tank, or in my case, these buckets, okay? So it sucks the water, and it discharges to your sink, okay? Then you shut the valve, and it continues to run for a few seconds to build up pressure in the hose, the discharge hose, in between the sink and the pump. So and it shuts off automatically. Now, the other thing is you also can hook up to shore. So in between your sink and your pump, you're going to have a T connection. Okay, so a T connection. This is the pump right here. Pump. It runs to the sink. There's your sink right there. You're going to have a T connection right there. Okay, so now that's for your shore. That's going to hook up to the outside wall where you screw in a hose where you can get shore water. So that water comes in. It can't go this way, because remember we talked about the pump. It only allows water to go one direction. It won't go back. So that water comes in into your sink. This water comes in into your sink. Now your shore hookup is also a one-way thing. Water can only run this way. Okay? So everything is a one-way direction. That way nothing's back flushing into the tank and nothing's back flushing outside. Now, if you put a water heater in there, okay, you're going to want your water heater to have a separate connection after the pump and after your shore connection. But that's a whole different system. We don't have water heater, so I'm not even going to talk about it. Okay, the next one. Oh, one other thing. When you hook up your pump, your water pump, make sure you put a switch in there in line. You can put it on the negative wire, and you just put a switch in there. So your switch has 2 little prongs. So you'll just put one from the battery and one to the pump. Okay, and that's your switch right in the center. The next one is the water tank. We only have a gray water tank. The freshwater that came with the freshwater tank that came with the camper, I just converted into a a gray water tank. And I'm going to show you a picture. This one's really simple. Water drains from the sink into the tank. It's real simple, not a problem. So I have a drain hose that goes right into the tank. And then to drain it, I've put this water spigot, and I can drain it right into a bucket, and then I can carry the bucket to the bathroom. No big deal. Or I can hook a hose up to it if I go to a shore power, which I've never stayed at shore. Well, I did at Missouri, but we didn't use any hookups. So I can drain that water right from that water spigot right into the campsite drain. Very simple. Next, the inverter. Now, inverter. I've talked about this one in quite a bit of detail in a previous video, but I'm going to go through it again real quick just for the sake of this video because there was questions being asked. The inverter converts battery electricity, DC electricity, that's what a battery is, it's DC, direct current, into AC electricity. AC electricity is alternating current. And that's what you use in your house, AC, 110 volts. So here we have the inverter is hooked up to the battery, and then it has plugs that you plug into. The thing that a lot of people took interest in is you have two different types of inverters. You have sine wave inverter, or you have modified inverter. Sine wave inverter costs $1,000, $1,500 for, 750 watts, 1,000 watts, something like that. They're kind of expensive. But the thing about them is they're true 60 hertz. Remember, it's alternating current, AC alternating current. So you have 60 hertz. It goes up and down, up. So that 60 hertz provides you a consistent cycle. So your appliances, my refrigerator, for example, requires that 60 hertz to run at a speed, a certain set speed. Modified inverters, however, do not keep a consistent cycle, which can be problematic for things, sensitive electronics and those kind of things. I hooked up years ago an modified inverter to a TV that did not have a DC. A lot of modern TVs have DC currents now. But anyway, and it caused waving lines in the TV. These were, oh gosh, back in 2007. Still had an old 90s TV. And so it caused all these wavy lines in the TV. Because it's not true 60 hertz. It just kind of jumps all over the place. And so when you run your refrigerator, and this is the easiest way to explain it, you have a motor back there that's running, and it requires 60 hertz. When you use modified, it's constantly slowing up, speeding down, slowing down, speeding up minutely, but it's doing that. So what will happen is it heats up the motor more than it's supposed to, and eventually the motor could burn out. I'm aware of that, but since it's a modified inverter, the inverter only costs $40 instead of $1,500. The refrigerator I use only costs $100. So if the inverter burns up the refrigerator in 5 years, I can replace it very cheaply. And if the inverter burns up, I can replace it very cheaply. Whereas if I use a modified inverter, they're going to burn up too. It just means every 5 years I'll be spending $1,000. So I went with the cheap method. Okay, and then finally, the other important system I have, and this one usually comes with all campers. I'm not trying to be, well, all these systems come with, but this one's pre-installed. I didn't have to put this one in. Is propane. Propane is can be used for a lot of things, heat primarily, and cooking. But some people can run their generators off of it, and I'm not going to get into all those fancy things. I just wanted to let you know there's a lot of options for propane. The way we set ours up, and I did this so I could cycle out tanks easier. Second, for one reason, and the most important reason was I was not comfortable modifying propane pipe work. I just wasn't comfortable with it. So the way I set it up was I have a propane tank dedicated to the stove, and I have a propane tank dedicated to the Mr. Heater Portable Buddy. And so when the heater runs out, I still have the stove option. If the stove runs out, I still am able to use heat. So it just, you know, it was easier for me. Then I have 4 propane tanks, 2 that are always on the camper, 1 for the heater, 1 for the stove, and then 2 in the back of the truck that I can rotate out. I used to only carry 3, but that ran into a problem when both tanks run out at the same time. I don't know how many times that's going to happen, but it already happened once in 6 months. So I thought, and we don't use the heat that much this summer, so I was thinking when it gets colder, that could be a more problematic problem. So we got 4. So anyway, that is the 4 essential systems in a pop-up camper, at least when you're living it like we are. So I just wanted to explain those to you, what we got, because I had a little bit of follow-up questions from the last video. So anyway, hope that makes sense. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Click like if you like the video, and happy travels.